When the fake HOA cop pointed his gun at my wife's face, he was shaking with fear. But she just smiled. What he did not know was that the small woman he threatened was County Sheriff Laura Crow. The most powerful law officer in our county. His biggest mistake ever. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The moment Gerald Hawkins pointed his black gun at my wife's face, I saw something strange. She smiled. But it was not a smile of fear. It was the smile of a cat who had just discovered a mouse in a trap. The fake HOA cop with his cheap uniform was shaking. Sweat was running down his face like a waterfall. He was screaming that he would arrest us. But what he did not know, what the entire neighborhood did not know, was that the small woman he was threatening was County Sheriff Laura Crow. She had once taken down the state's most dangerous drug gang. Let me tell you the whole story from the beginning. It was a hot July afternoon when we finally opened the door of our new home. After years of saving money and looking at many houses, my wife Laura, our 12-year-old son Ethan, and I had finally made it. Oakwood Estates looked perfect. The lawns were green and clean. The houses were beautiful. Everything looked expensive and new. Our moving truck looked very different from the luxury cars in the driveways. I could not help but notice how people stopped and watched us. They looked at us from behind curtains and over fences. They seemed curious and maybe even suspicious. We were, after all, the only black family on the block. Some people made quick eye contact and then looked away. Others stared openly. One old man across the street did not even try to hide that he was watching. He stood on his front porch with his arms crossed, watching our every move. Just ignore them, Laura had said earlier. They will either get to know us or they will not. Either way, this is our home now. Laura had insisted on keeping her job as county sheriff a secret. It is best if people get to know us as people first, not as my badge, she had explained. I do not want special treatment or fear. I just want neighbors. I agreed, even though I thought her job might be useful to know about sooner rather than later. I am Brian Crow, by the way. I am a freelance writer and proud husband to the most amazing woman in law enforcement. While Laura chases criminals and makes our county safer, I chase deadlines and stories. It works for us. Our son Ethan is smart like both of us. He has his mother's observation skills and my love for stories. At 12 years old, he loves making videos with his drone camera. Laura gave him the drone after he got straight A grades last semester. Need help with that? A voice came from over our fence. It belonged to a friendly woman with a warm smile. This was Caroline Briarwood, a nurse in her 30s with a great laugh. I have been watching you struggle with those boxes for an hour, she said. I thought I should finally be neighborly. Within 20 minutes, Caroline was sitting on our porch drinking lemonade and telling us about the neighborhood. The houses are beautiful. The schools are great. But the HOA here is basically a small dictatorship, Caroline explained quietly. Gerald Hawkins runs it like his personal kingdom. He is a former cop who got fired for bad behavior. Now he plays pretend police in the neighborhood. She took another sip. Just a warning. He tends to pay special attention to new residents who do not fit his preferred type. Her eyes looked meaningfully at Laura and me. The last Indian family lasted 6 months before they sold. The Hispanic couple before them lasted 4 months. Just be prepared. Laura and I looked at each other. We had dealt with prejudice before. We were an interracial couple in America. But we had hoped our new neighborhood might be different. Thanks for the warning, Laura said with calm authority. But we are not easily scared. Caroline smiled. I figured that. That is why I am already rooting for you. What do you both do for work? I am a writer, I said quickly. Freelance articles and some ghostwriting. Laura smiled. Government work. Mostly administrative. This was her standard answer when she did not want to talk about being the highest-ranking law officer in the county. Just as Caroline was about to respond, a shadow fell across our porch. A fat man with a military haircut stood at the bottom of our steps. His arms were crossed over his chest. His polo shirt said HOA security on the pocket. His face looked like he was always disappointed in everything. New residents must register with the Homeowners Association within 48 hours of moving in, he said without introducing himself. His eyes looked at our boxes with clear suspicion. There is also a violation notice for wrong trash can placement. He pushed a yellow paper toward me. I took it, confused. But we have not even unpacked yet. We do not have trash out. This empty box by your garage is wrong waste disposal according to Rule 7.3, he continued as if I had not spoken. First warning is free. Second will be a $50 fine. I am Gerald Hawkins, HOA president. He did not shake hands. Caroline rolled her eyes behind Gerald's back. Laura's face stayed neutral, but I knew that look. She was remembering everything about this man. Thank you for the warm welcome, I said, unable to hide my sarcasm. We will make sure to read all 300 pages of HOA rules tonight instead of unpacking our beds. Gerald's eyes became narrow. Attitude does not work in Oakwood Estates, Mr. Crow. We have standards here. With that, he turned and walked away. He stopped only to write something on his clipboard as he looked at our front lawn. And so it begins, Caroline said quietly. Welcome to paradise. That night, after Ethan was in bed, Laura and I sat on our back porch sharing a bottle of wine. Maybe we should tell them you are the sheriff, I suggested. It might make Gerald back off. Laura shook her head. No. If there is something truly wrong happening here, I want to see it happen naturally. Using my position as protection is not fair to others who might be dealing with the same treatment. She took my hand. Besides, I have dealt with men like Gerald my entire career. Small men with weak egos who use their little bit of power to make others feel small too. She smiled that dangerous smile. Let us just follow the rules, write down everything, and see where this goes. If he is really breaking laws or violating civil rights, we will handle it properly. The next few weeks brought many yellow violation notices. They appeared like clockwork. Sometimes they were under our doormat. Sometimes they were taped to our garage door. Sometimes Gerald delivered them himself with great drama. Our mailbox, which was standard black and approved by HOA rules, was suddenly wrong. Our lawn, cut exactly to the 3-inch maximum height, was cited for wrong cutting patterns. Our cars, parked in our own garage, were somehow placed wrong. The craziness reached new levels when we got a notice about feeding birds after Ethan had thrown some breadcrumbs to blue jays. Another notice came for wrong window curtains when Laura hung blackout curtains in our bedroom. They were the exact same style and color as curtains in at least 3 other houses on our street. But the worst came when Gerald gave us a formal warning about wrong landscaping after I planted some African violets in a small garden bed. I had to read that one twice. The racism was barely hidden. This is getting crazy, I said one morning, finding our 7th violation notice under our mat. Laura stayed calm. She took photos of each notice. She scanned the rules they mentioned. She made a detailed record of every interaction. My wife, always the careful investigator. Meanwhile, I began noticing Gerald around our property more and more. He would circle our block many times a day in his white SUV with HOA patrol signs on the doors. He often parked across the street to watch our house through binoculars he did not even try to hide. It is not just you, Caroline confirmed when she stopped by for coffee. He has been worse lately with everyone. But you are definitely getting special attention. With Caroline's help, I began connecting with people who had experienced Gerald's harassment. James Ashcroft, a professor who had sold his home at a loss 6 months earlier, described constant harassment that ended with Gerald calling the city to report fake violations. It was psychological warfare, Ashcroft explained on a video call. Every day, a new accusation, a new violation. We could not live like that. The pattern was clear. Gerald targeted non-white homeowners with aggressive enforcement and fake violations until they left. Meanwhile, certain other residents, mostly older white homeowners in Gerald's social circle, got warnings instead of fines. It is called selective enforcement, explained Cole Martin, a lawyer friend of Laura's who worked with HOA disputes. It is one of the most common ways HOAs abuse power. It is also very illegal. If we can prove he is enforcing rules differently based on race, that is a federal fair housing violation. He looked at the records Laura and I had made. This is impressive work. Most people do not keep records this detailed. My wife is thorough, I replied with a smile. Meanwhile, Laura quietly used her law enforcement access to check Gerald's background. What she found was disturbing. Fired from county police 15 years ago for using too much force against a black teenager during a traffic stop, she said one night after Ethan was in bed. 2 domestic violence complaints from his wife, both dropped. Investigated for threatening local businesses while on patrol, but charges were never filed. She closed the file. Now he is recreating his power fantasy in Oakwood Estates, complete with a group of retirees he calls his patrol team. "Dad, I have something to show you," Ethan said one evening. His voice was excited. He pulled me into his room where 3 computer screens showed different angles of our property. "I set up a surveillance system with motion detection," he explained. "The cameras are small enough that Hawkins has not seen them. I used Mom's old undercover cameras and added some features." He clicked a few keys and a calendar appeared with color-coded entries. Red is for when Hawkins comes. Yellow is for his patrol team. Blue is for when someone comes on our property without permission. The calendar had many red marks. "He has been on our property 6 times this week," Ethan said. "Always between 2 and 4 in the afternoon when he thinks we are all gone." He clicked another button and a video began playing. It showed Gerald looking through our windows, checking our garden, and once trying our door to see if it was locked. I stared at my son in amazement. "Where did you learn to do all this?" He grinned. "Mom taught me the surveillance basics. She said it might be useful someday. I added the tracking technology myself." The final straw came when Gerald stepped up from harassment to real threats. After I formally challenged the $500 fine at an HOA meeting, Gerald's actions got worse. His patrol team began driving by our house at all hours. Someone cut our garden hose and damaged our sprinkler system. Anonymous notes appeared in our mailbox warning that troublemakers get what they deserve. "Time to set the trap," Laura announced after finding another note. The cold anger in her eyes reminded me why criminals across the county feared her. "We are hosting a barbecue this Saturday. We are inviting the whole neighborhood." "A barbecue?" I asked, confused. "Trust me," she said with that cat-like smile. "Gerald will not be able to resist making a scene. And when he does, we will be ready." The invitation went out to every home in Oakwood Estates. The cards were beautiful. Laura had made sure they were professional. We hand-delivered each one to make sure Gerald could not take them from mailboxes. The wording was carefully written with Cole's help to avoid any possible HOA rule violations. We mentioned that parking would be in our driveway and approved visitor spots. We said noise levels would stay within limits. We said the gathering would end by 8 p.m. It was perfect against any real complaints. We also invited some special guests. Cole Martin, of course. But also several of Laura's co-workers from the sheriff's department, including her second-in-command, Deputy Chief Michael Rivera. All would come in regular clothes. Their connection to law enforcement would stay hidden unless needed. The response was better than expected. Despite Gerald's campaign against us, many neighbors were curious about the new family brave enough to challenge the HOA dictator. The morning of the barbecue, a formal letter arrived. It ordered us to stop all plans for the neighborhood gathering. It claimed our event violated noise rules and parking restrictions. We ignored it. I fired up the grill. Laura made her famous potato salad. Ethan set up a sound system with music. By 3 p.m., our backyard was filled with neighbors introducing themselves. Many were meeting for the first time despite living near each other for years. "I have not been to a neighborhood party in 5 years," said Diana Lewis, an HOA board member. Gerald discouraged them. He said they created problems. She looked around at the diverse group of homeowners talking happily. "This is nice. This is what community should be." Gerald's arrival was like a dark cloud crossing the sun. He marched into our backyard through the side gate without knocking. Frank Miller and 2 other members of his patrol team followed him. What made my blood run cold was not their uninvited presence. It was what Gerald was wearing. A full police uniform complete with badge, utility belt, and what looked like a real gun. "This gathering is in violation of HOA rules," he announced loudly. His voice cut through the pleasant conversations. The yard fell silent as everyone turned to stare. "All non-residents must leave immediately. Homeowners need to return to their properties." I stepped forward. Cole Martin moved quietly to stand beside me. "There is no rule against barbecues or gatherings on private property, Gerald," I said. "We have reviewed the bylaws carefully." I held up a copy of the original HOA rules. "The actual bylaws, not your changed versions." Gerald's face turned deep red. "As HOA security, I have the authority." "You are not HOA security," Caroline interrupted, surprising everyone. "You are the HOA president. That does not give you law enforcement powers." "I am a former police officer," Gerald snapped. His hand moved to rest on his gun. It was clearly meant to scare people. "I know the law better than any of you." "Former being the important word," Diana Lewis said. Her voice shook but she was determined. "And that uniform? Is that real, Gerald? Are you pretending to be a police officer right now?" Murmurs from the crowd grew louder. Gerald looked around, suddenly aware that he was losing control. His patrol team seemed uncomfortable. "This gathering is creating a public disturbance," Gerald insisted. His voice got louder. "I have had complaints about noise and parking violations." "From whom?" I pressed. "Would you like to file a formal complaint? We can write it down properly with witnesses." I pointed to the diverse group around us. All these homeowners who seemed to be enjoying themselves. Gerald's face twisted with anger as he realized he was being outmaneuvered in front of the community he had controlled through fear for so long. His eyes landed on Laura, who had been quietly watching from near the grill. Perhaps he thought her calm manner meant she was vulnerable. "You," he snarled, pointing at my wife. "You are behind all this, are you not? Stirring up trouble, turning the neighborhood against me." In one smooth motion, Gerald pulled out his gun and pointed it directly at Laura. "I am placing you under citizen's arrest for disturbing the peace and interfering with HOA operations." Gasps and screams came from the crowd. Parents pulled children behind them. Some people dropped to the ground. But through it all, Laura remained perfectly still. Her expression changed from surprise to something else. A small, dangerous smile that I recognized all too well. "Sir," she said. Her voice carried command and authority. "I need you to lower your weapon immediately." "Do not tell me what to do," Gerald shouted. Sweat poured down his face as he realized he had crossed a line. His hand shook, making the gun move dangerously. "Everyone stay back. I am in control here." Laura took a single step forward. Her movements were careful and non-threatening. "Gerald Hawkins, I am County Sheriff Laura Crow." She slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out her badge and ID. "You are currently committing multiple felonies. These include pretending to be a police officer, threatening people with a gun, making terrorist threats, and assaulting a law enforcement officer. Her voice stayed calm, almost conversational. There are currently 6 off-duty sheriff's deputies at this gathering watching your actions. Lower your weapon now. The change in Gerald's face was almost funny. Shock, disbelief, and then pure terror as reality crashed down on him. The gun in his hand seemed to suddenly burn him. He looked at it as if wondering how it got there. Before he could decide what to do next, Deputy Chief Rivera and 2 other officers who had been pretending to be party guests made their move. They took Gerald's gun with professional skill and forced him to the ground. "You cannot do this," Gerald cried as handcuffs closed around his wrists. "This is my neighborhood. I am in charge here." "Not anymore," Laura said simply. She pulled out her phone to call for patrol cars. As Gerald was led away, still making threats and excuses, the gathered neighbors stood in stunned silence. Then Caroline started clapping. Within seconds, the entire gathering joined in. They were not celebrating violence. They were celebrating the end of a petty tyrant who had made their lives miserable for years. Diana Lewis approached me, her eyes wide. "Your wife is the actual county sheriff. All this time?" I nodded, unable to stop smiling. She wanted to handle this by the book. Gather evidence properly. Make sure it was not just us being targeted. Document the pattern of discrimination. All the violations, the harassment, all documented and now part of multiple criminal and civil cases, Cole Martin confirmed. "Mr. Hawkins has bigger problems than HOA rules now. Pretending to be a police officer alone is a felony. Pointing a gun at the county sheriff? He will be lucky to see daylight anytime soon." In the days following what neighbors now called the barbecue incident, Oakwood Estates experienced a huge shift. Neighbors who had previously hurried from cars to doors now stopped to chat. Children who had been kept apart now played freely across lawns. Gerald Hawkins sat in county jail, denied bail. The county judge had been particularly unmoved by his lawyer's pleas. "Mr. Hawkins appears to represent a continuing threat to the community," Judge Martinez had stated firmly. "His actions show a pattern that led to a potentially deadly confrontation." Bail denied. Meanwhile, Frank Miller and the other patrol team members, facing criminal charges of their own, began cooperating with investigators. They revealed years of systematic discrimination and rule manipulation. Gerald had a rating system, Frank explained during a recorded interview. He called it the Property Value Protection Index. Families got scores based on things like race, income, and family type. Anyone scoring below 75 got targeted for what he called relocation encouragement. The most shocking revelations came from Linda Hawkins, Gerald's wife. After years of living under his control, his arrest seemed to free her. She came to Laura at the sheriff's office, nervous but determined, bringing boxes of evidence. Gerald's private records of his harassment campaigns, lists of homeowners he targeted, and evidence of financial crimes. He kept track of everything, Linda explained. Her hands shook as she handed over the evidence. He was proud of it. He called it his neighborhood cleansing operation. He said he was maintaining property values by keeping the right kind of people in Oakwood. 6 weeks after the barbecue, Gerald's case went before Judge Patricia Williams. The courtroom was packed with Oakwood residents there to see justice done. Gerald, stripped of his fake uniform and power, looked small and defeated in his orange jail suit. Judge Williams was having none of his lawyer's attempts to make Gerald look like a well-meaning volunteer who just went too far. "Mr. Hawkins," she said after reviewing the evidence. "This court finds that your actions went far beyond overzealous enforcement of community rules. You engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. You used your position to target specific homeowners based on their race and background. You entered private property without permission. And most seriously, you pretended to be a law enforcement officer and threatened the county sheriff with a deadly weapon." She leaned forward. This was not enthusiasm. This was not a mistake. This was calculated abuse of power motivated by prejudice. The sentence came down hard. 15 years for the weapons charges, pretending to be an officer, and other felonies. Additional civil penalties were pending from the class action lawsuit Cole had filed on behalf of current and former residents. As we left the courthouse, Caroline squeezed my arm. "It feels like we can finally breathe again," she said. "Like we have taken back our neighborhood." Laura nodded, her face serious but satisfied. Communities should be built on respect and support, not fear and control. What happened in Oakwood was not just about one bad person. It was about a system that gave him unchecked power and neighbors too scared to stand up to him. She looked around at the gathered residents. That is the real lesson here. When we stand together, bullies cannot divide us. 1 year after Gerald Hawkins's conviction, Oakwood Estates hosted its first annual multicultural festival. It was a perfect late summer day. What began as a simple community celebration had become a neighborhood-wide event that drew visitors from across the city. Food trucks representing a dozen different cuisines lined the main street. Children ran between bouncy castles and face-painting stations. A stage featured performances from mariachi bands to African drumming to classical violin. Our son Ethan, now 13, had set up a display showing the transformation of Oakwood. His documentary film, Taking Back Our Home, had won a Youth Filmmaker Award and was being shown in schools across the county. Under the leadership of Thomas Bennett, a retired judge elected as the new HOA president, and Caroline as his vice president, Oakwood's Homeowners Association had been completely rebuilt. Gone were the arbitrary rules and selective enforcement. In their place were transparent processes, democratic decision-making, and a focus on community building rather than control. Many of the families who had been driven out by Gerald's harassment had returned, including the Ashcroft family who bought back their old home. Maria Gonzalez now led the cultural committee. Diana Lewis headed the Rules Review Board, making sure that necessary standards were maintained without being used as weapons of discrimination. As the festival wound down, someone brought out guitars and music filled the warm summer air. Children chased fireflies while their parents shared stories and laughter. Laura and I sat on a blanket at the edge of the gathering, watching our son play with his new friends. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. "You know," I said, "when we moved here, I never imagined we would end up taking down a corrupt HOA dictator and rebuilding an entire community." She laughed, leaning her head against my shoulder. "And I never planned to reveal my job to the entire neighborhood by having a gun pointed at my face. Life takes unexpected turns." "Speaking of which," I continued, "Cole called earlier. The class action settlement came through. Every current and former resident affected by Gerald's discrimination will receive compensation. And the legal precedent we established will make it easier for other communities to fight similar battles. That is what matters most," Laura said softly. "Not just fixing our neighborhood, but creating a path for others to follow." She looked around at the diverse faces lit by string lights and the setting sun. "This is what community should look like. People from different backgrounds coming together, supporting each other, belonging." Maria Gonzalez approached us carrying 2 plates of her homemade cake. "For the heroes of Oakwood," she said with a warm smile. "My daughters and I would have left if things had not changed. Now they are talking about staying here for college. They feel like they belong here. That is a gift I can never repay." "You do not need to repay anything," Laura replied, squeezing Maria's hand. "That is what neighbors do. Look out for each other." The Ashcroft family, who had moved back just 3 months ago, had become central figures in the community's rebirth. James Ashcroft now headed the Neighborhood Welcome Committee, making sure new residents received real hospitality rather than intimidation. His wife Ellen had started a community garden. Their teenage son Kevin and our Ethan had become best friends. When that fake HOA cop had pointed his gun at my wife, he had no idea he was threatening not just the county sheriff, but a catalyst for change that would forever transform Oakwood Estates and communities beyond. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways. But when it arrives, it is a beautiful thing to see. If you are watching this and dealing with similar issues in your own community, remember that documenting everything is your best weapon. Stand together. Know your rights. And never underestimate the power of one family willing to stand up against injustice, even when that injustice comes in the form of a petty tyrant with a clipboard and a fake badge. The path to justice may not be straight or simple. But as our experience shows, it is a journey worth taking. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who deserves to feel at home in their own neighborhood. Our story did not end with Oakwood Estates. News of what happened spread far beyond our neighborhood. Local media covered the case extensively. National news picked it up. Suddenly, people from across the country were reaching out to us, sharing their own stories of HOA abuse and asking for advice. Laura began giving talks at law enforcement conferences about recognizing and addressing housing discrimination. I wrote a series of articles that were published in major magazines, bringing attention to the widespread problem of HOA corruption. Ethan's documentary became required viewing in several school districts as part of their social justice curriculum. Cole Martin's law firm saw a huge increase in HOA discrimination cases. Communities that had suffered in silence for years finally found the courage to fight back. The legal precedent set by our case made it easier for victims to win in court. Within 2 years, 17 other HOA presidents across 3 states faced criminal charges for similar patterns of discrimination and abuse of power. Most importantly, our story showed that change is possible. That standing up to bullies works. That one family refusing to be intimidated can inspire an entire community to reclaim their power and dignity. As I write these final words, sitting on our porch in Oakwood Estates, I can hear children laughing in the street. I can see neighbors of every background gathering for an impromptu block party. I can feel the warmth of a true community built on respect rather than fear. This is what home should feel like. And it was worth every violation notice, every sleepless night, and every moment of uncertainty to get here. Gerald Hawkins thought he could use fear to control people. He thought his fake authority made him powerful. But he learned the hard way that real power comes from standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult. Especially when it is difficult. If our story teaches anything, let it be this: your voice matters, your rights matter, and you are never as powerless as a bully wants you to believe.